Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
What's going on, you guys? It's Jay. And do you know how many times I've been executed in cold blood by this slimy son of a bitch? Too many times to count. And you know what? The intro to Fallout New Vegas never gets old. It gets you amped up and ready to dive back into the Mojave. It's the perfect setup for the best Fallout experience. Because let's be honest, Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout game. A Fallout game, as we all know, that Bethesda didn't even touch, but instead was developed by the almighty Obsidian Entertainment. And reminder, a game that was only made in 18 months. New Vegas will always haunt Bethesda because it's so damn good, and it's something that they will never be able to escape even to this day. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this video. Yapping about why New Vegas is still the GOAT and why it does so many great things that Bethesda will never be able to replicate. And before you say, oh great, another video essay on New Vegas, not like we don't have 1,000 of those already, but there's a good reason for it, alright? New Vegas is just that good. Also, this is my channel, so fucking deal with it. But before we dive in, just for a quick little backstory, a few weeks ago I made a video talking about the new Fallout TV show and compared it to the games. Like personally how I felt the TV show was able to grasp that Fallout feeling we all know and love. So for that video I went back and started replaying New Vegas for some quick gameplay, not really thinking anything of it, until the next thing I know I've installed a bunch of mods and put another 60 hours into another playthrough. So I figured, you know, I've been wanting to make a New Vegas video for a while, so what better time than now? I'm stoked and ready, so let's dive into the beautiful and quirky Mojave Wasteland. Like I said, the intro into New Vegas is just perfect. Everything from the music to the intro cinematic, it always gives me chills even though I've seen it so many times before. Especially if you've played New Vegas hundreds of times like me, the cinematic is able to portray that New Vegas vibe and feeling so well. It's almost impossible to not get sucked into the world. But what really matters is that right off the bat, you're introduced to a deserted but somehow lively world and given choice in every single thing that you do. Waking up in Goodsprings, want to kill the doctor that just saved your life? Go ahead, bro. Don't do that though, seriously, unless you're a f***ing sicko. You'll want to thank the doc for fixing up your ugly mug, then right after you step out of his house, you'll have to decide if you want to help the good old people of Goodsprings. You kind of owe them, you know? Or how about siding with the Powder Gangers, a gang of escaped prisoners who are absolutely stacked with dynamite? And right there is what New Vegas is all about. The entire game is full of so many choices and different ways to navigate each quest you stumble across, and that's what makes it so good. There are obviously some more linear quests, but the amount of quests that give you the freedom of choice is seriously insane. For example, one of the first towns you run into on your way to New Vegas is Primm, a place that's been overrun by Powder Gangers, and you'll be tasked with deciding Primm's fate. Want Primm to be an independently run town? Go find them a new sheriff. Want Primm to be protected by the NCR, the biggest governing democracy in the West? Get ready to pay some fucking taxes. Giving the player choice is what makes an RPG an RPG. This is something that Bethesda has always struggled with. Fallout 4 barely had any choice besides, I guess, the main story, and now especially recently with Starfield. You can make some decisions regarding factions, and there are parts of the main story where you have to make a choice, but that's where it stops. Where New Vegas is filled with so many different side quests, with so many different outcomes and quests that branch out from each other, that no matter how many times you play it, no single playthrough will ever feel the same. And while I'm not saying this aspect of the game is perfect, because unfortunately you aren't able to see a lot of the impact of your choices, you're mostly just told at the end of the game what happened. But this is completely understandable because of the sheer time crunch Obsidian was under while developing this game. And trust me, while I wish you could feel more of the impact of your decisions, the life and blood of New Vegas is still playing through the game and making those choices that will impact the Mojave. And with the amount of branching quests and all the content in the game, what they were able to accomplish here is nothing short of spectacular. And people praise New Vegas for good reason. This time around for my playthrough, I decided I want to go a speech build because I have the habit of maxing out speech immediately and then just talking my way out of everything. Because who needs to fight when you can just win everybody over with your radiating charm? I always max out my luck though because I like being a winner in the casino. That's another thing that's so great about this game is that your stats actually matter. There are so many stat checks that make you feel the impact of your build. There are also some great perks you can choose at the beginning of the game too, like my favorite, which is the Wild Wasteland perk. Nothing I love more than finding the crashed UFO, slaying some aliens, taking picking the alien blaster and just disintegrating literally everyone. And that's literally something you'll miss if you didn't choose that perk. New Vegas is scattered with little things like that, which really elevate it as an RPG. You can feel the passion that was poured into this game. But anyway, like I said, I wasn't allowed to use speech, which forced me to find different ways to navigate through the game. And this playthrough was one of the most fun I've had in years. Since I couldn't talk my way out of everything, I found myself really exploring more of the game's world and really immersing myself in the Mojave to try and find different alternatives to progress through the game. Doing this really made me come to appreciate the actual world of New Vegas a lot more. And it's crazy how playing the game a completely different way will give you a completely different perspective on the game entirely. The world of New Vegas, even though it's in the literal desert, it feels surprisingly alive. The world feels actually lived in. You'll start to notice it in all the small settlements scattered throughout the Mojave like Novat or Prim, but you can really feel it when you start wandering Freeside or doing quests in the iconic strip of New Vegas. And due to the very open nature of the game's main story, it allows for the player to focus on exploring all the game's factions and settlements, each faction having their own place in the world, and if you dive far enough in, you can see how the relations are with neighboring factions and even how they interact with them. And it's just so easy to immerse yourself in the game's world because of this aspect. But not only do you have the smaller factions you'll be interacting with, but on top of that, you have this big conflict between the NCR and the Legion who are fighting over Hoover Dam. You have the NCR who are trying to bring democracy to the wasteland, and then the Legion being scary. You'll feel the tension of this conflict all across the entire wasteland, and eventually you'll be making big decisions that will impact this conflict as well. For this recent playthrough, I finally sided with the NCR, which I have never done before. Most of the time I go the yes man route and take matters into my own hands, but I wanted to experience something different this time around, and I'm happy I did. And even though I prefer going a more neutral evil route, it was worth experiencing the game with that added NCR democracy. Arguably a corrupt democracy, but who doesn't love a little corruption, you know? What's so great about the quests in New Vegas, though, is that you'll have the really serious quests like the NCR and Legion conflict, but then you'll have these goofy-ass quests that create a nice break from the bleakness of the post-apocalyptic world. One of my favorite quest lines is the one in Novat where you gotta help those ghouls go to their promised land, where you gotta launch them on those old rockets. Like, what could go wrong? Or helping out the super mutant settlement in Jacobstown where you'll find your long-lost grandma, Grandma Lily. There's just so much to do in New Vegas, and almost none of it is filler. So many quests with so many stories to tell, and it's so easy to find yourself exploring and immersing yourself in the Mojave and engaging with the characters you meet because the writing is so top-notch in this game. New Vegas has so many memorable side quests that I always actively seek out when I start up a new playthrough. It's this level of detail that's missing in the Bethesda Fallout games. It's hard for me to remember such iconic quest lines besides maybe the Far Harbor DLC in Fallout 4, which is arguably the best part of Fallout 4. And I know I've been relatively critical of Bethesda in this video. Don't get me wrong, I love all of their games, even Starfield, crucify me. But I'd be lying if I said New Vegas wasn't my absolute favorite, and I'm always reminded why every time I replay it. If anything, as I grow older, I come to appreciate it more. I mean, shit, you think I had any idea what was really going on in the Mojave when I first played New Vegas when I was 10? I really do love how the game flows too. Like I said, the main story is very open. I mean, you're literally just chasing Benny across the Mojave, and then you finally get to him, and everything starts really branching out from there. And Benny, even though he's a scummy piece of shit, I genuinely really like him as a character. Also, his checkered suit is fucking sick and iconic. If it wasn't for the Ranger armor, I'd say it's the best piece of clothing in the entire game. But what makes the main story so great is it forces you to explore and pushes you to go places and experience all the game has to offer. And because the game has very little filler, there's never been a point in any playthrough where I felt the game was dragging me along. I'm always ready to be done with the game by the time the credits roll, and it always leaves me more than just satisfied. Until I eventually get the itch to replay the game again, it's the New Vegas cycle. I'm sure many of you can relate if you're watching this video. If there's one point I'd say I dislike the game is when you're fighting the Bullet Sponge Robo Scorpions in the Old World Blues DLC. I might have a really hot take when it comes to the DLC, which is Dead Money is my absolute favorite of the four. Everything about the atmosphere with the Sierra Madre and the survival horror elements with resource management. It even has some really great characters that I genuinely care about. It's funny now because I really disliked it as a kid because I'd almost always go in underleveled. Second up would have to be Old World Blues. It really does feel like a huge fever dream the entire way through, but I really enjoy the weapons and I like the dialogue with the characters. Quest design is pretty, I hate how many times I gotta run through that stupid fucking experiment in the high school. And once again, the Robo Scorpions, bro. The amount of ammo you blow through in Old World Blues is crazy, but luckily the good aspects outweigh the bad, and there's a surprising amount of content in this DLC too. But yeah, fuck the Robo Scorpions. Next up is Lonesome Road, which I still liked a lot. The environment in this DLC is so crazy good, and the storytelling is so well done too. My only complaint is I usually plow through it super quickly, but I'm usually over leveled by the time I get to it, so it's not really the DLC's fault. And lastly, Honest Hearts, my least favorite. Not that it's bad by any means at all. I really like Joshua Graham and his whole story, but compared to the other 3 DLCs, it just doesn't do it for me. I always made sure to play through it though, and I know some people think it's the best DLC, and I can respect that opinion, but all the DLCs are still fire though, and way better than some of the DLCs we got in Fallout 4, and I'd say they're arguably better than any of the Fallout 3 DLCs too. None of them feel out of place, and they're all there to add to the overarching lore and world building, and I can't help but appreciate all of them. It's still very obvious today why New Vegas is and will always be the GOAT of the Fallout series. I've never seen a game looked on so fondly by a community, and there's a reason we all hold Obsidian up in the limelight. Not only do they have other absolutely amazing games in their catalog, but they made literally the best Fallout experience you could ask for. The love that is felt all throughout New Vegas, whether it's the care and detail they put into the lore of the game, or the character writing and quest design, or the amount of freedom given to the player, New Vegas screams passion. Obsidian might not be the same company that we used to love today, but you can't argue that what they created with New Vegas will always remain timeless. New Vegas is a game that I will always return to, and I'm sure this won't be my last playthrough. Maybe next time I'll finally give Mr. House a chance. Yeah, that's not ever happening. But anyways, you guys, I think it's a great place to call the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I know I've been slacking on the videos recently, but I got a bunch of videos in the works. A lot regarding FromSoft. But I'll see you guys in the next video, and yeah, peace.